Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We begin with an invocation. We pray Sahana Vavatu. May we be protected, those who are taking part in this satsang. Sahano Bhunaktu. May we reap the result of this satsang. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. May we both put forth the right amount of effort that is required. Tejasvino adhitam astu. May what we study be bright for us both. Ma vidvishavahai. May there be no ill feeling between us, between anyone who is part of this satsang. So we begin. I just hope that you're all well, wherever you are. You're all keeping well, keeping safe. At times of crisis, like what we are going through, we are tested. And we are tested not to check us, but we are tested by ourselves. Our lifestyle changes, and whatever we're used to is no longer available. So all those luxuries that we took for granted suddenly really do appear to be luxuries. The simple act of walking out and going to the shops is something that we now have to really think about. In fact, leaving the house more than once or twice a day is something that we have to think of. So at these kinds of times when our situation changes, we are tested by our own mind that has become so accustomed to certain things. And also what happens at times like these is we become aware of how privileged we are. How privileged we are to be safe in our homes. How privileged we are to know that we will have enough to eat every day. How privileged we are that there will be healthcare available if we need it. At least the basics. How privileged we are that we don't have any other insecurity to deal with at a time like this. And sometimes what happens when we become aware of our privilege, it can paralyze us because we're overcome with guilt. I feel guilty that I have so much and others don't have anything, or others have so little. So how do I deal with this? How do I deal in a healthy way with this privilege that I have? So one way is to be grateful. It's not that I have asked that others don't have what I have, but the fact is that circumstances are what they are. So one thing we can always do is be grateful and turn that gratitude into prayer. To express that gratitude, but also to wish well for others. And let it allow us to become generous. Let this awareness of our privilege allow us to become generous towards those that aren't enjoying what we enjoy, so that I can make a difference. I can contribute. The other thing that happens at a time like this is we gain an insight into how our mind works. And we also gain insights into what is important to us, which we don't have the opportunity to question on a regular basis. I don't always ask this question. What is important to me? What is it that I value in life? And at times like these, it gets revealed to us because we don't have a choice but to think of what is important. And when those things are thrown into relief, what we find is that although it's difficult, we are able and we are willing to give up things. We are willing to endure some discomfort for the sake of a future benefit, right? So we get instructions. Don't leave your house if you can help it. What is the basis of that instruction or the possibility that I'll follow it? What's to say that I won't just say, no, you know what? I'm just going to do what I want. Because I can look at my situation and say, if I follow these instructions, I perceive that there will be a good outcome. I perceive that I will benefit and others will benefit from me following this instruction. So whether it's staying in as opposed to going out, whether it's keeping in touch virtually versus meeting up in person. And it's great that we have that option open to us because that's what's allowing us to have this satsang today. But there's still, meeting someone in person and as opposed to seeing their face on a screen and having to interact that way. And what happens is when we find people who are unwilling to sacrifice their own wants for the sake of the benefit of the many, then what do? We find that we call those people selfish. Now there's another term for them that I won't repeat on here, but you may have seen in the news and social media, a special name that has the name of the virus and another word affixed to the end. That's what you get called if you go out. As some of you know, some of you have not heard, which is good. So what we say those people are, is if you can't give up what you feel is good for you for the sake of what others would benefit from, then we say that is someone who is acting in a selfish way. And when we are prepared to give up our own preferences for the sake of others, not only to give up our own preferences, but we see people actively putting themselves in situations of risk to provide care for those who need it, then those are the people that we appreciate. Those are the people that we say are selfless. Those are the people that we praise. Which is why everybody has started going out every Thursday night at 8 p.m. on their street to show that appreciation, to clap and to bang your pots and pans and your plates and to, to cheer, because those people who are willing to be selfless are the ones that we appreciate at a time like this. And what does this show us? What does this teach us? Is that what we value, what does it teach us about what we value? It teaches us that what we value and what we think is important is not anything external. In a situation like this, we are not praising or looking up to the people who have a lot of wealth or the people who have great power or position, especially if that wealth is being used to give them advantage over those who don't have access to such things. So what we find is, what do we value at this time? We value something that is very much internal. The ability of people to be selfless, the ability of people to think of others. That is what we appreciate at a time like this. And what we find is, when we ask this question, what is it that determines the ability to be selfless? What is it that makes the difference between somebody saying, I'm willing, I'm happy to sacrifice my individual wants or needs for the sake of others, so that others can benefit? I'm willing to give up on something which I'm used to. I'm willing to give up on something that I like. I'm willing to give up certain comforts on the basis that others will benefit by that selflessness. So when we ask this question, what is it that allows people to act in this selfless way? We can look at it in a much more general way, which is that whatever way of life that we lead, that way of life is determined by our character. The way that we live in general is determined by the kind of people that we are. And our character is determined by two things. You could put it in different ways, but here we can think of it in this way, that our character is determined by, one, the values that we hold, and two, by the knowledge that we have. So when somebody holds values, when somebody believes in, for example, the value of honesty, then what happens is that value feeds into that person's character, such that they become an honest person. Honest in their speech, honest in their action, honest in their thought. And that character then determines the way that they live their life. So you can think of lots of different examples, and we will be seeing many different values. But values, the core values that we hold, are the things that shape our character. And the other thing that also does that is the knowledge that we have. In other words, what is it that I know about myself, about the world? Or rather, what is our vision of the world and of ourselves? What is it that determines the way that we see the world? According to this vision, according to this knowledge, again, our behavior will be shaped. So if I believe, for example, if my knowledge of the world, if my vision of the world is that it is one totality, and that within this totality, we are all interdependent upon one another, then what effect will that knowledge have on the way that I live my life? I will be very conscientious about the impact that I am having, not only on people around me, but also on the environment. So I will think about the way that I'm living my life and the impact that it is having on people around me. Because I'm not under any illusion that I'm living by myself as an island, and what I do doesn't have any impact on the people around me. So our vision also impacts the way that we live. One is our values that impacts our character, and our knowledge, our vision impacts our way of life. Here, in these 4 series of talks, we are going to be looking at a particular portion of the Bhagavad Gita in relation to this idea of values and the impact that it has on our character. So this portion is from the 16th chapter of the Gita. And what the context is, that we'll also see a little bit later. But for now, what we have to know is character is said to be of 3 types. You know how people always say there are 2 types of people in this world. One is like this and the other is like this. So what is said here? There are 3 types of people, okay? There are 3 types of characters. And if I tell you the English translation that is given of these 3 types of characters, we get a little bit shocked because the Sanskrit words are Daivi, Asuri, and Rakshasi. And how this is translated is divine, Devi, Asuri, demonic, and Rakshasi as fiendish or monstrous. These are the translations you'll see if you read some English version of the Gita. So what is meant by these 3? Okay. And immediately when we hear such things, then we think, I don't want to cast judgment, but I'm definitely in the divine category. This always comes to our mind. Any 3 categories are there, then we'll say, I know I have some flaws, but at the end of the day, I'm a good person. Okay, I have values. I'm a good person. So we all want to put ourselves in that Devi, in that divine category. And we'll see. Okay, we'll see what that means. But also, what happens when we use such kind of words? Then it starts to appear not irrelevant, but it doesn't seem to relate to our lives. Because whereas in our everyday life, where do we think about divine or demonic or monstrous or fiendish? We don't use such words. So we'll think of it slightly differently. How it is pointed out, we'll start from the Rakshasi. Okay. Such kind of people, it is said, their predominant thought, or the thing that is predominant in their lives is anger. People whose lives are guided by, prompted by anger, frustration, irritation. They are angry at the world, they are angry at other people, they are angry maybe at themselves. And the expression of all this anger, this frustration, is that they will end up harming or hurting others. Now, this is not to blame people for the anger that they feel. This is just to try and understand that when we have a lot of anger within us and we don't find good ways of dealing with that anger, then what happens is it just builds and builds and builds. And when it does express, it's hurtful, it's harmful. You know, it's like a pressure cooker. I don't know if you know, many of us when we're children, the thing that we're most scared of in the kitchen is not knives or anything like that. It's not heat, it's not the oven, it's the pressure cooker. Why? Because it will be sitting there very innocently. Some little amount of steam will be coming out of the top very quietly, and then all of a sudden it explodes. And you don't know when, and you can't predict it. And that unexpected sound can be so frightening. Forget for children, for adults also, it's can be frightening. So what happens when somebody has a lot of anger within them? Then nobody likes to be around that person because you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells. You don't know what is going to set them off. The slightest look, a word, not even a word, but an inflection in your tone, and they could take offense and suddenly get angry and suddenly shout or do something. There are some, one Swamiji says there are some parents, when children see that it's time for parents to come home, father or mother, either one, say they hear the key in the door, they hear the front door opening. There are some parents who will run towards the door because they're so excited to see their mum or dad. And there are some children, or some parents rather, which when they arrive home and the kids hear that sound of the lock opening and the door opening, they run away because they know better not to be around when they come home. Some terrible expression will be there. You will get shouted at, something will happen. Because for those people who are, frustrated at work, then it's difficult when you get home if there's no room for that expression. Then where are you allowed to express? At home, where nobody can kick you out. In the office, if you express your anger, then they can throw you out. At home, so such people, their character is predominated by this anger. And it is leading to destruction in that person's life. This is different from, sometimes we have this question that sometimes we have righteous anger. So we have anger that when we get angry at some injustice in the world. So that's fine, because then we are using that in a constructive way. We're not allowing it to harm anyone. We are using it in a positive way. This person who is constantly dominated by anger will end up hurting people. This is the first type of character. The second type, those who are dominated by desire. desire means, this anger is the Rakshasi person. So don't think Rakshas means somebody with horns and big fangs and green skin. That is not Rakshasi, means the person who is always angry. The second is the Asuri person, who is dominated by desire. So desire for what? Desire for whatever is in this world. Some desire may be there. Desire for wealth, desire for fame, desire for power, desire for status. If you want to understand it simply, they have desire to enjoy. The main goal in life is to enjoy whatever is there. So this life is here and this world is here for me to enjoy it. And as a result, what is their thought? That there is no need of God. Nobody needs God because I'm very capable of producing my own enjoyments in life. There is no need of religion. So you tell them to come to satsang, they'll say, why? Nothing is wrong in my life. You are the one who is suffering. You are the one who is sad. You go, I'm perfectly healthy. I'm perfectly fine. I have no need of satsang. I'd rather entertain myself in some other way. So the predominant thing for such kind of people, Asuri people, is desire. Desire to enjoy the world. And the third type is one whose life is guided by knowledge, who want to inquire, who want to know about the world, who want to know about themselves, who want to know that, is there such a thing as God? If so, what is that God's nature? What is the nature of the world? Who am I? Such people, their life is guided by right thinking. So when they're in a situation, they're not reacting based on emotion. They're not reacting based on desire. They are thinking and then they are responding to the world. Such a person will engage in spirituality. The first one, the Rakshasi, who is dominated by anger, will not even have a thought about spirituality. The one who is driven by desire will not see any need. They may acknowledge that it's there, somebody else needs it, but they themselves will say, I don't need it. But this person who is guided by knowledge, by thinking, this person will say, I want to know. And this is what is at the heart of spirituality. What does it mean? Spirituality doesn't mean anything mystical. It doesn't mean anything exotic. It doesn't mean anything magical. Spirituality doesn't mean traveling somewhere and doing different things and looking different. Spirituality means turning inwards. Turning inwards means turning towards myself. Or differently, if you want to put it, turning toward God. Seeking divinity in life. This is why the word that we use in Sanskrit is, we say that the Gita, etc., they are all Adhyatma Shastra. Adhyatma Shastra means scripture. Adhyatma means that which is relating to I, to me, myself. It's not telling me, it may tell me about other things, but the main purpose is for me to think and to find out, who am I? is this physical body the extent of who I am? Is this world exactly what it appears, or is it something different? Are we all connected to one another? Is there a way that we can live in peace and harmony? Adhyatma, spirituality, is helping us to find answers to such questions. And the Bhagavad Gita is called Adhyatma Shastra. It is that which points us to the truth about ourselves. Not only about ourselves, but also about what is this world, what is God. These are the topics that are addressed in such scriptures. But not only is it answering such questions, it is also helping us to know how we should live. And therefore, it is also called a Dharma Shastra. It is also that scripture which teaches us the right way to live. The right way to live meaning, how can we live so that we are happy? Not only we become happy, but we also allow others around us to be happy. It's not a selfish kind of happiness. And why it is important that we understand both. Why is it not enough to just live well? Or why is it not enough to just understand the truth? Because how we live determines what goal we will attain. How we live determines what end we will attain. And if we have a goal, that goal determines how we will live. Say, for example, I want to, this is an easy example, easy to understand. Say, for example, I set my goal as running the marathon. Okay. Now I've set my goal. Now, what should the effect of that be? That effect of that should be that goal starts to impact how I live my life. So I have to get training done. I have to exercise well, eat well, sleep well. All of those things change. Now, if I don't alter my way of life, if I keep going as I am without exercise, eating an unhealthy diet, then that will impact the goal that I attain. In other words, if I don't do any preparation in my way of life, I will not be able to attain that goal. So both are required. And when we ask this question that what will determine our way of life, what will determine the kind of goal that we set? How do I decide on the way that I live? How do I decide on my goal? So it comes back to what we spoke about earlier, which is our character. So the values we have and the knowledge that we have. So how do I develop good character to attain the highest goal and to live the best kind of life? The answer is that I must cultivate these virtues. I must practice these values that are pointed out. And here in the 16th chapter of the Gita, there is a beautiful, very exhaustive list of 26 values that are pointed out. They say 26 values is a lot for anyone, right? Somebody tells you have to practice one thing in life and it sounds like a lot. Just imagine if someone tells you, okay, now you have to practice 26. Firstly, I have a difficult time remembering what those 26 are. You ask me to name, then I won't be able to tell you. You want me to practice 26 values. So what is said is, the first 3 that we will see, these are the most important. When we develop the first 3, then the remaining ones will be easier to develop. They will come more naturally. So far, what have we seen? What is the importance of these values? Okay. And the 3 types of character. Here, what is being referred to when we're talking about these values? The relevance of that is when we develop them, we are developing that kind of character whose life is driven by knowledge, who is not living their life purely for desire, and who is not living their life driven by anger, by frustration. Such a person will be able to live a spiritual life, will be able to progress spiritually. This is what is said here. So I hope now we've understood what this Rakshasi and Asuri is. And also, what is this Devi, the divine? Now, we will come to the first verse of the 16th chapter. Okay. Those of you who have the book, you can look at it. Those of you who don't, I think these copies are available online, so you can check there. And there is a beautiful commentary that has been written by Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmaya Ji. So you can have a look for that. Okay, so I will just read the verse. You can follow along just by looking at it. Okay. So it begins with the Lord. He says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi Danam Damascha Yajnascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam. This is the first verse that enumerates these values. It continues for 2 more verses, but for now we'll just see the first one. So the Lord said, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The first 3, which are the most important, Abhayam. So it begins with something that is extremely important, extremely powerful, the value of fearlessness, Abhayam. Abhayam, so then we have, I'll just give you the meaning of the others. Sattva Samshuddhihi, so purity in intention and in action. Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi, so abidance, steadiness in knowledge. Danam, charity. Damaha, sense control. Yajna, sacrifice. Swadhyaya, study. Tapaha, austerity. And Arjavam, straightforwardness. So you don't need to worry if you didn't catch all of that, because we will be seeing each one. For now, we are looking at this value of Abhayam, fearlessness. And this is, the fact that it's the first already tells you something about how important it is. It's not that he's just listing them randomly. It begins with A, so Sanskrit alphabet also begins with A, so I'll give you that, Abhayam. A, I, U. He's not going like that. Okay. Abhayam because it is so valuable, so important, not only for a spiritual seeker, but for anyone. This value of fearlessness is foremost. So we will look at a few different aspects of this. Okay. So if you were expecting that out of 26, we will cover, what is a third of 26? I don't know. If you're expecting that we will cover 8 today, then please don't be disappointed, because we will probably only cover 1, maximum 2. Okay. Because these are the important ones. Then we'll see each one. Sometimes people get worried that first class and you only covered one thing and we have so many more to go. So how will we finish? So that's my job to worry. You don't have to worry. I will worry about that. So the first thing is abhayam. Abhayam means, bhaya means fear. So abhayam means fearlessness. So an absence of fear, but it also implies something more than this. It's not just an absence of fear. It also means there is courage. So what is fear? So we recognize this in different ways. One is the physical manifestation of fear. So for different people, fear expresses in different ways. For some people, it is, you feel very short of breath, right? You can't feel like you can't take a breath properly. Heart starts beating really fast. You get that adrenaline rush. You start shaking. Some people, when they feel fear, then they freeze. They can't move. Some people, when they feel fear, the opposite happens. So they start manically doing lots of things. So fear gains different expressions, but generally it will manifest at the physical level. But it is not just a physical sensation, right? There is a mental expression or a mental experience of also agitation, of restlessness, of worry, anxiety. And interestingly, it's also said that what happens to our intellect, what happens to our rational thinking capacity when there is fear? So this we also have experienced, right? Everybody has experienced this. When you're scared, we can't think properly. The intellect is unable to function. Now, if we think, when do we have fear? When do we experience fear? So if you look at children, when do children get scared? When they've done something wrong, right? When they've done something they know they're not supposed to do, and nobody has found them out yet, then what happens? They get scared. And some children, out of that fear, before anyone has found out, they'll just burst into tears. Before anyone has said anything, before anyone knows, that child will just burst into tears. And they'll say, "What's wrong? What happened to you?" And that child won't be able to even say anything because they're so scared of what's going to happen now that I've done something wrong. So sometimes this happens. Sometimes they become this happens to us also, right? We become very defensive. Or when we've done something wrong, we become suspicious of other people. So we've done something wrong and we're waiting for someone to notice, and somebody looks at us. Say, "Why are you looking at me like that? Why are you talking to me like that?" So we become very defensive. But this is one idea that when we do something that we know we're not supposed to do, then we experience fear. So, for example, we've all been told, that we should stay in, right? And we should not go out. Or we should go out only for essential reasons. Say you go out twice, 3 times in a day, just because you feel like it, which I'm sure none of you are doing. On your 3rd outing, what will happen? What will be going through your mind? That fear will be there, that somebody will stop me and ask me, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why are you out? Because I know that I've done something wrong. Because the thing is that when we do something wrong, we know that there are consequences. And we don't like to have any kind of unpleasant experience across the board. Nobody likes unpleasant experiences. And we know that when we've done something wrong, the corrective measure for that will be an unpleasant, because its purpose is to ensure that we don't do that wrong thing again. And because we don't want to experience that unpleasant thing, there is now this fear in the mind that I will have to go through something that I don't like. Why? Because I've done something wrong and I know that there will be a consequence. So, what is the solution? If you get scared because you're doing something wrong, then don't do it. It's very simple. We just don't do it. Now, someone will say, I really don't want to do it. I don't want to. I know that I'm going to suffer. I know that I will not like the consequence. But I helplessly end up doing it anyway. Or I don't do that thing, but I still feel fear. So even for those of us who aren't going out, for those of us who are staying in, for those of us who are following social distancing, who are washing our hands regularly, etc., we may still be experiencing fear. We may still be experiencing anxiety and worry. Why is that? Why is it important? First, why is it important to inquire into the cause of fear? Because if you know the cause and you address it, then the effect also will go. So if we can address the cause of fear, it means that we can attain this fearlessness. So why is it that even if we haven't done something wrong, then sometimes we are still afraid? Generally, it is because we have some attachment to a person, a thing, a place, a situation, and that attachment causes fear. What is attachment? Attachment is when we invest something with a sense of happiness, which is not actually inherent in that thing. For example, many of us are very attached to our mobile phones for various reasons. Why? Because what we have done is we have created a relationship with our phone such that we feel we can be happy only when we have that phone with us, or if we have access to that phone all the time. If I don't have access to that phone, I become unhappy because my source of happiness has been cut off. Who said that that phone has happiness in it? Nobody. I myself have decided this phone makes me happy. Phone is a very simple thing, okay? Another example, for example, the house where you live. What is our idea? We work hard for it. We don't want anything to happen to it. We don't want to lose it. We don't want anything to threaten it. So when we're attached to it, then there is fear that what will happen if somebody breaks in, what will happen if something happens to the house, etc., etc. All these thoughts are there. So because I feel that my happiness lies in this thing, naturally, whenever that is threatened, then there will be this fear that it should not be taken away from me. I will be unhappy if it is. Possessions are one thing, but really, what are we afraid of here? We are afraid that we will lose people. Okay, if I lose a thing, but if I lose a person, then what is this thought that what will I do without them? I can only be happy if this person is well and happy. And if that person is not well, is not there with me anymore, then naturally we don't want to face the possibility of that kind of sorrow. So there is fear. What will I do without this person? So this attachment causes fear in us. Whenever we feel that, whenever we create a relationship of dependence with anything, then there is fear because we don't want to lose that thing. And naturally, everything that we are dependent upon is temporary. It is impermanent. My family members, will they live forever? Do you know anybody that has lived forever? No. Will my family members live forever? No. Will my possessions, will they exist forever? No. Will the positions that I occupy, will I have them forever? No. And the nature of them, when it is changing, then it means that there is a possibility of my losing them. And that creates fear. So what is the solution here? Find something which is permanent and get attached to that. Remember, we are looking at this. If we wanted temporary worldly solutions, we would not be looking at the Bhagavad Gita. When we look at the Gita for solutions, we are looking for permanent, solid solutions. So what is the answer? The stark reality is that as long as I am attached to temporary things, I will experience fear. If I want to be fearless, I should not be attached to that which is finite, and I should look for that which is permanent and develop an attachment there. Now the question is, what is permanent? This is the subject of our Adhyatma Shastra, our spiritual scriptures. This is what they are talking about. Some people may say, I'm not afraid of I'm not afraid because I'm attached. I'm afraid of the unknown. Our fear of death, what is that? Our fear of death is a fear of the unknown. We don't know what will happen. But in fact, this can also be understood to be an effect of attachment. The thing about death is, if we have a start date, then we will have an end date. And all of us are very happy about our start date. Every year, we make sure that we celebrate. We make sure that everybody else celebrates too, whether they want to or not. You better not remember, you better not forget my birthday. You better remember and wish me and send me a present, send me a card. Otherwise, we get very upset with people. You forgot my birthday. So we're very happy, we're very proud of our start date. Sometimes we may not wish to reveal the year, but we're happy to share the day and the month with everybody so that they remember, they can wish us. And yet, our end date is incredibly frightening to face up to. We don't know when it is, and therefore we feel we don't have any control over it. And that's the frightening thing. I don't know when it will be. I don't know how it will happen. I don't know what will happen afterwards. And therefore it is scary. Why? Because we like to know, we like to be in control. And the thing is that if we have come here, we have to go. Nobody wants to stay forever, really, if we think about it. We don't want to stay forever. We don't want to stay after everybody else is gone either. So this fear, because we are so attached to the idea that I'm in control, this idea of death can be very frightening. Sometimes we say, you know what, I'm not afraid of my own death, but I'm afraid of what will happen to others after I die. So I'm fine to face it for myself, but what about my parents if I can't look after them anymore? What about my children if I'm not there to look after them? What will happen to them? So this fear is there. Associated with death is the fear of pain also. This is sometimes why we fear death, because we feel, what if it's a very painful experience? So there, what is happening? Because we are so attached to our body, we're attached to other people, there is this fear of death. Now, how to face up to this fear? This is a serious one. One thing is to know, this is a fundamental principle of any school of thought that originates from the Vedas, the principle of karma. The principle of karma is at its heart a principle of cause and effect, which is to say, every cause must have an effect. In other words, every action that I perform must yield its result. And I, as the performer of the action, must be the one to experience the result of the action. It won't go anywhere else. It's like a boomerang. It will come straight back to me. So everything that is happening now, everything that will happen in future, everything that has happened, this is a result of my own actions. And therefore, what has to come will come. Where I have a choice is how I face that which comes. It's in our karma to be stuck inside our homes on a day when the spring sunshine has finally decided to show itself. That is our karma. Where is our self-effort? Am I going to be cheerful about it? Am I going to face it happily? Or am I going to grumble about it, be grumpy, and make everyone else around me also grumpy because I can't deal with it? Whatever is going to happen, that will happen. But we have within our control, we have self-effort to exercise. I can decide how to respond to situations. I can decide how to act. So karma helps us to understand, helps us to make sense of what is going on in our lives. And it also doesn't make us unfeeling. You know, sometimes the complaint about karma is, it means that you're sort of just condemning everyone to their fate. You're suffering, well, it's because of your karma. So you just sit there and suffer. Nobody can do anything to help you. This is not the principle of karma. In fact, why is it said in the Gita so many times that a saint is the one who loves all, who is compassionate, who cares for all? He knows very well how the principle of karma works, and yet that saint is still compassionate and loving towards all. So karma doesn't mean leaving people to suffer whatever they're going through. It means understanding why it's happening and doing our best to help them and to help ourselves anyway. It means exercising that free will in a positive, loving way. But understanding the principle of karma will help us to understand why things are happening. And ultimately, what is one of the most powerful antidotes to fear? It is faith. When I have fear, if I can develop faith, that faith will push fear out of my mind. It will not leave room for that fear to disturb me anymore. Faith doesn't mean I will sit here and not do anything and just say that if God wants to save me, he will save me. Okay, this is not what we mean. You know that very famous story of that man who was caught in a flood. Somebody drove by to help him. He said, no, God will save me. Someone came in a boat to help him. He said, no, God will save me. Somebody came in a helicopter to save him. He said, no, God will save me. Finally, he drowned. He died. And then after he died, he'd met God. And he said, God, why didn't you help me? I prayed to you. I had faith in you. God said, I sent 3 people to help you. You ignored all of them. So it's your own fault that you're here. So faith doesn't mean not helping ourselves. Faith means doing whatever we can, but keeping a positive attitude. And if we can develop faith in that which is infallible, then we will be truly protected from fear. So what does the Bhagavad Gita, what do our scriptures tell us? God is all-knowing. God is all-powerful. Not, and this is very important, not as an individual. God is not another individual like you and I, but with extra superpowers of knowing everything and having all powers. God as the totality and the intelligence which pervades this totality, that God is all-powerful, that God is all-knowing. And intelligence, not in the way that you and I are intelligent, but that very principle of consciousness, which is spoken of as the truth, that God is all-knowing. If we can have faith in God, who is infallible, we can protect ourselves from fear. We can become fearless. So these are all different ways to try and understand how to become fearless. If we are experiencing fear, we are experiencing anxiety, then we have to also take practical steps. We have to talk to people. We have to, if we need it, we seek help. Spirituality is not telling us not to take practical solutions. We are here as part of a community, as part of this global community, to support and love one another. So we offer help and we ask for help if we need it. And why is fearlessness required? To do the right thing. This is also important. I'm very fearless. For what? To do the wrong thing. To go out and break all the rules, to do whatever I want. I am fearless. We have to be fearless to do the right thing. Fearless to seek the truth. Fearless to know God. Fearless to know ourselves. That kind of fearlessness is required. So these are different ways of looking at it. But ultimately what it comes down to is fear comes as long as we accept that there is something other. As long as I see that there is something, someone other than me, there is the possibility of fear. As long as we conceive of ourselves, of this world, everything and everyone in this world as different, as separate, of God as different and separate, there will be fear. And there will be all those other unpleasant emotions, such as envy, jealousy, competition, all these things will be there. As long as we accept that there is something other. What are we trying to understand by studying the Gita, etc.? That there is one infinite truth. And by its very definition, that infinite truth cannot exclude anyone or anything. If it does, it's not infinite. So if I can understand that one infinite truth, whether I understand it as God, whether I understand it as my own self, that all is one, that understanding, that knowledge is what will give me fearlessness. And only somebody who is fearless can give fearlessness to others. If we ourselves are full of fear, that is what we will give to others. When fearlessness is based on knowledge and not on any kind of experience or any kind of emotion, when it's based on clear knowledge, then nothing can take that fearlessness away from us. Because it's my knowledge, and once I know something, that knowledge can never be taken away. So we have seen various different ways in which we can become fearless. We have seen the importance of these different values. How is it that I can gain this knowledge which will make me fearless? That is described in the next value, which we will see next week. Okay. So I hope you're all, again, keeping well. We'll conclude with the peace Shanti mantra invocation, and then there, just want to share a couple of things that are happening with you. So we'll just say the closing prayer together. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So some more online satsang for you to take part in. Every day at 12:30 p.m. UK time, Puja Swami Swarupananda Ji, the head of Chinmaya Mission, is doing an online satsang on YouTube on the Chinmaya channel. So search Chinmaya channel and you can watch that. Additionally, in the UK, we will be having a celebration of Hanuman Jayanti on Wednesday evening from 7:30 to 9 p.m. So you can check our website, etc., for details of that. And I hope you can all join in. Okay. And look forward to seeing you next week at the same time, 4 p.m. Hari Om.